What is analysis? Analysis is the act of carefully examining a thing to make sense of it, be able to explain it to others, and have an understanding of how such information affects other things. When analyzing, we could be examining data, we could be examining the behavior of someone or something. It could be a problem, it may be text that we have to interpret or audio content. So we could be making sense of behavior, data, something we hear, something we read, something we see. It doesn't matter whatever it is we are asked to analyze. What matters is that we make sense of it. So when we're making sense of it, we're trying to understand, what does this really mean? We should also be able to explain it to others. It does not mean that our goal is to talk about it, but it should be that our goal is that if we are required to speak about it, we would be able to explain it. We should also have an understanding of how the information affects other things. For example, if we're examining a person's behavior and our goal is to analyze the behavior, we should now consider, how does this person's behavior affect anyone else around them? If we're reading text and we're examining it, we're looking to analyze it in the sense of, how does this information affect how we function in our society? How does it change anything that is happening, even in the text? Analysis involves applying more of our prior knowledge. So in our previous lessons, we looked at inference, where we match the findings of our observation with what we know. Nevertheless, our schema is very vast. We have so much knowledge that sometimes we don't even pause to acknowledge how much we know. So, in analyzing, we have to delve deep into our memory to relive our real and vicarious experiences of the world and call upon all of those memories to the matter that is at hand. Analysis therefore requires that we go deep into our mind to get into the mind of others. We could be trying to get into the mind of the writer of the document, the creator of an image, the characters in a story. It does not matter. It's just going deeper in our minds to understand what may be happening. So when we're analyzing the data, remember that we're just still thinking about what could happen or what may be happening. We are not going to conclude that this is a fact, but we can make a conclusion that this could be or this may be. When analyzing, we interpret the evidence that we gather. So we would have gathered the evidence from observation, but in analyzing, we are trying to interpret it. We're trying to make sense of it and to present conclusions based on it. As a part of analyzing the evidence, we also recognize patterns. Are there any things that are similar? What might be different, but is there a pattern of difference? We also ask thoughtful questions. We reflect, form judgments, or make conclusions. So once more, when analyzing, we interpret the evidence that we gathered, recognize patterns, ask thoughtful questions, reflect, and form judgments or conclusions. Let's look a bit deeper at some of these. When we say thoughtful questions, some persons might say, aren't questions just thoughts? Why say thoughtful questions? Well, sometimes we ask questions without even questioning why we're asking these questions. So when we're engaging in critical thinking and we're zooming in on our skill of analysis, we question the why of things. We ask ourselves why a thing occurs, why it has occurred, or why it is occurring. So we ask, what is happening? Or why was this done? Or what is going on? And why is it going on? We sometimes ask how. Like we may say, how did this happen? Or how can it happen? Or how is it that this is happening? What caused this? We also need to zoom in a bit on reflect. However, next week when we look at communication as a part of critical thinking, we will zoom in a bit more on the role of reflection when thinking critically. But briefly, analysis requires that we reflect not only on what we see, but reflect even on our very thoughts about what we see. Sometimes we perceive things and we have to question ourselves again, reflect. Do we really believe this? Is this really what we believe? Is this really what we're thinking? Where did we get this thought? Sometimes we have to reflect on our previous experiences before we can form a judgment. In forming judgment and conclusions, good critical thinkers sometimes become skeptical of even their judgments. They often reanalyze their conclusions. And it's not to say that you're paranoid, it's just saying, let's take this a bit further. Before I present my conclusions, let me review them. Good critical thinkers are always skeptical. And some persons might say it's not good to be skeptical because it might turn off people. However, when you want to actively engage in critical thinking, you have to call on a bit of skepticism as well. So you will look at what others say and criticize it, but it's not a criticizing to say, let me bash them. It's a criticism to say, let me examine it from their perspective. And you also criticize your conclusions as well to see if your judgments are really based on evidence. Sometimes analysis requires engaging in further research. Or if you did not do any research before, it might mean that you have to do research. For when analyzing, we look at all angles and examine the matter from all angles. So it might seem like a simple matter. However, we have different perspectives on things. So it's always good to examine things from different perspectives. Good critical thinkers therefore realize that, listen, although I might not hold the same point of view of others, I can try to understand their point of view, and I will also try to judge the matter from those other perspectives. So we don't have to agree. We don't have to be seeing things from the same angle. However, good critical thinkers will decide, let me take a step away from my perspective and just view things from someone else's perspective. And to practice this, you may go to someone and say, what do you think about this? And you might not even tell them what you previously thought. Just ask them, what do you think? And when they give you their opinion, you now say, from what perspective did you form that opinion? Why did you come to that conclusion? What is it that would have influenced your thought process? It could be that sometimes when we reflect on what we now have in front of us, that we might change our point of view. And nothing is wrong if, as a critical thinker, you keep changing points of views. What is critical, though, is that we ensure that whatever our conclusions are, it is supported by evidence. A good critical thinker, therefore, will attempt to test all hypotheses that are presented. So once there is a theory about a thing concerning this same matter, a good critical thinker will say, let me try and see if this is really possible. Let me try and see if this is how it could have been. Let me see if there was a better way to do this. Let me see if others have proven that this can be so. Let's now re-examine some of the content from our previous lessons. Remember that our goal today is to go beyond observation and inference and now analyze. First, let's do a recap of those activities. In our previous lessons, we would have examined this image. We would have observed to note evidence. We would have followed the details and recorded the details. We would also have inferred. Let's now analyze. Let's firstly observe patterns. There are 3 children, as we know. However, 2 have black hair. The 2 boys who have black hair also both have buckets. There's a third bucket, but it's distinctly different from the one that the other 2 boys have. We also notice that each bucket is close to a particular child. However, the boy standing and the boy stooping both have 2 things protruding from their buckets that seem like sticks, or something that could be similar. It would not be good to assume that the boy who isn't stooping got that cleaning device, that windshield wiper, from his bucket. However, since we're analyzing, we could form a conclusion of such. We would have also inferred that the boy to the right could have been saying stop. In analyzing, however, we would have to question, why is he saying stop? Is this just a momentary pause? Is he saying stop to allow the next child to continue? Is it that he's saying, oh, you have done enough? Or is it that he's saying, don't do it at all? Could it be that he's asking that, oh, I would like to do it myself? Could he be carrying out something that happens in society? Is this a role-play situation? Why did the artist create this image? What was the motive behind it? So in analyzing, we consider all of those.